Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that you got on today. And I also want to apologize for the mix up that happened last week. I'm going to blame it on the retrograde that was happening because I don't know what happened, but probably it could have been me for sure too. So you're here today because you've done the work. You've moved through so much and grown in ways that others we can't even see. And now you're finally ready to shift what's been running the show or see what's behind that and create the life, the impact, and the freedom that actually matches who you are here to be at the core. So, have you ever wondered why, after everything you've done, something still feels a bit out of reach, like with the things that you've done? Today, we're going to explore what's really going on beneath the surface and why some of these modalities and mindset shifts and why the things that we do don't stick, or maybe they do, but it's not, it doesn't go as deep and we end up trailing back. And I'm going to show you how you can create transformation at the subconscious level where change actually lasts. And at the end, I'm going to share how you can experience this shift for yourself and really rewire what's been getting in the way for you. So hold on till the end and I'll share that so that you can fully who you are, really the person that you already are that's sitting there waiting for you to step in. So as we begin, whether you are here live or you're listening to the recording, I want to invite you to be fully present. So close out your tabs, put your phone on vibrate or set it aside and really be present. Take some notes. And I want you to reflect as we go, because as I tell these stories, some things may show up for you. And how I demonstrate this, it may help you remember some of the things or think of the patterns that are coming up in your and just pay attention to your body. Pay attention to your thoughts and the things that are coming because when you pay attention to those are potential gold for shifting them later at the root. Okay, quick, a little bit about me. Whether you're listening for the first time, I do want to share a quick about my story and what my experience was. So I grew up in a home where my dad was verbally abusive. He was a farmer. We lived out in the middle of nowhere. And I always felt like I had to walk on eggshells through my whole childhood. I had to make myself small and kind of disappear in the background in order to just really survive life and not yelled at and not see a huge blow up. What happened with me is I carried these patterns that I developed way back when. There were others also, which I'll show you. I carried them into my business. And so things like staying small, I didn't even recognize, but that was like the thing that was playing out in my business. That was one of the biggest things. And I felt like despite all the work that I was doing, I mean, I went through counseling. I did a lot of affirmations and seminars and reading books, to getting coaches, business strategy, just trying so many different things to try and fix myself. I now know we're not broken. And I always felt like I wasn't quite getting to the core. And it wasn't until I met a friend networking, had a lunch with her, and she had just learned this new process. I was already in like studying neuroscience, studying through a coach and for like 8 years, but it wasn't getting to the core of stuff. It was really just surface level. And the method he used was just like the same for everybody. And I progressed, but it didn't get to the core. What she shared with me, she was so excited and she was just looking for volunteers to, do this process with so that she could get a little practice under her belt. And so I, chose to experience it with her, and it was a full day. And in one day, I decided that I wanted to work on relationships, even though my business was struggling. At my core, I just kind of intuitively knew that that needed to be worked on first because I held everybody at arm's length, even my husband, if you can imagine. So intimacy was not, even though it was there, it wasn't because there was like this arm's length about emotional intimacy. And same with my relationships with my sibling, my mom, and different people. I always pushed people away because it wasn't safe to let them in. So that's what we worked on that day. And I felt completely different. That evening, I felt different. I got home and I was reaching out to my mom. I was doing things and inviting people in a way that I hadn't been doing before. I also noticed that I wasn't triggered by certain songs on the radio that used to trigger past events. Even our cat, he was a feral cat. We still have him, but he's not super friendly. He was on my lap later that day, and I was like, whoa, something really going on here. But what was more profound than anything was that the next day I woke up and I had all these revelations about relationships, but I noticed I wasn't procrastinating in my business. And so that's what made me make the connection of whatever you work on personally, it's going to help you in your mission in your business because that is where the real change happens and where the connection goes. So that was my big aha. And then I decided to just take more training. I did tons of training in neuroscience. I went through the same training that the person who showed it to me, I went through that same training with her. And then the pandemic happened. And with the pandemic happening, I was taught that you had to do this in person and that it was an all day event. And I wasn't going to be on Zoom for 8 to 12 hours because that's literally how long it was taking. And so I sought out more training and got some different perceptions and perspectives from different places. And what I did is I pulled it all together and pulled out the most efficient parts and put it together in my own way. And that is what I do now. And that is what I teach. That's kind of the quick synopsis of how all of that happened. And I really believe the reason why this is so important is we're at a place, our planet, in our timeline that we're in, where people are ready for deeper transformation. The surface level stuff isn't hitting as much as it could be, and they're truly ready for deeper transformation. And and they're tired of carrying around the old programs. They're ready. Part of my mission is to also teach other coaches while also helping them transform themselves so that we can get this work out into the masses even more. Because when those old, outdated programs are running the show, you don't get to make the impact that you could if they wouldn't be running the show. Okay, now I want to go through kind of two phases here. I'm going to share my screen and show you what's going on under the surface. And then I'm going to map out what all that looks like with this process that you can apply to your own work. You can apply that now, but also, like I said, I'm going to show you a way in that you can actually experience this in a weekend, and that can change everything. So, without further ado, share my screen. There we go. We'll make it bigger. I was going to draw this out on the whiteboard, but decided not to because this is so much cleaner. So, this is what's going on inside your head, the subconscious mind, below the surface. So, we have over 50 to 60,000 thoughts, stimuli coming into our system every single day. And Our bodies process that through our senses. So through your sight, your hearing, your feeling, touch, all of that brings a stimuli into what I call internal filters. And the internal filters is what I'm going to focus on the most today. Many ways that you can shift this. What I have found is I like to get to the core and I like to get to it quickly so that we can just move on and do the thing that we're purposed here to do. Your memories, your values, and your beliefs. Of course, there's attitudes and language that is a piece of that, but I'm going to focus mostly on those memories, values, and beliefs. What happens when information comes through these filters, whatever it is, so let's say you have a goal in your business to, show up more or to get more clients or, whatever that is, it goes through these filters of whatever those memories, values, and beliefs are, which are generally before the age of 7. They can also be from a past life. It can be from something generational. Those are what makes up those internal filters. And what we do is it goes through that and we develop and we distort, we generalize it to fit whatever those filters are. So we end up missing information that can help move us forward, or our energy doesn't show up and match what our goals are. And that is where we make our decisions, our behaviors, and our actions. It all comes out of that. And now I'm going to show you what it looks like in a real life example. And this is my brain. I've worked with many clients. I actually made this slide with some client examples as well, but honestly, my own experience with it is a good example. So you remember the story about my dad and all of that needing to feel small. All of these filters of I'm not important. I had a huge fear of conflict and did whatever people pleasing thing I could to avoid that. Tons of guilt. I felt like being me wasn't safe. We might run out. So that came from my grandma who grew up in this depression. I still save, I note, and it's not out of scarcity. I do it for the environment, but I will still save and wash out Ziploc bags. That came from her. What if there isn't enough? I stay small to stay safe. I don't want to upset anyone because you don't know what's going to happen if somebody gets upset. And asking for what I really truly want wasn't safe. So imagine, here's my goals about I want to build my business. It's going through all of these filters. So my perception of what I want and the goals and the actions that I want to take is greatly distorted because of these filters. And my energy is coming from these filters. It's not coming from who I want to be. So all of my decisions were based in scarcity. I had a scattered energy about me of not being enough. I felt bitter. You might feel frustrated. I can't even begin to tell you how much guilt I had going on. Guilt is a core emotion. And I had a tendency to accommodate, huge tendency to accommodate other people before my own needs. And that was based in fear. All of these beliefs, every single one of them are attached to core emotions. The ones that I work with the most are anger, sadness, fear, guilt, and shame. Those 5. And every single one of these can be attached to that. And those are stored in what's called your gestalt in your subconscious mind. And those are the things that drive behavior. They're developed before the age of 7, can be passed down generationally, can be passed down past life. And we work on these filters. And I'm going to map all that out, what that all looks like in a moment. I want to show you the after first, though. When I worked with my friend that day, this is what happened. We focused on relationships at the core. And immediately after, it was like it cleared the slate so that the filters were neutral. And realistically, you're not going to get everything. So I want to be realistic about this. This is not going to be like, oh, I magically, everything is good forever, because we have many, many, many layers to us and many subconscious filters. But I worked on that, the things that were getting in the way the most that day with relationships, and I immediately saw change. What happened was, because we rewired it at the core, the energy shifted and it was neutral. And so I immediately noticed that I was able to be more in the moment because I wasn't looking out for what's next or what might happen. I didn't have to be constantly looking, like that little girl about, oh gosh, is my dad going to blow up right now? Like, I'm not doing that behavior anymore. And I didn't even know I was doing it until I stopped doing it, if that makes sense. I was able to ask more confidently about what I wanted and needed. The relationships were completely different because I wasn't as distracted with people pleasing. My schedule, side note, went down quite a bit, or was able to relax my schedule a bit because I wasn't people pleasing and wasn't taking in stuff just to people please. So my schedule looked a whole lot better because it was actually doing the things that I wanted to do that would move me forward. And of course, I increased my bottom line pretty quickly after doing that with my business. So I was able to bring more in because I was showing up differently, honestly. That was huge. So I'm going to stop my share and we're going to move to the whiteboard next. It's down. Green, right. Okay. The way we shift this behavior, and this is foundational, and I'll say again, the steps I'm going to share with you, I'm going to go into detail about what's involved in them. And I want you to know that it can be applied to any technique, really. And, of course, I like mine the best because it's only 4 hours. And it shifts things at the core. So I'll just take that. I'm biased in the process because I've seen it work over and over again with so many people. So I'm gonna try my best to draw so that you can see it. But the thing is, we're gonna identify the root. Let's see. Okay. And I'm gonna attempt to draw a pyramid. And that's too bad. Can you see that okay? I make myself big so you can see. Okay. Okay, so identifying the root. This is key. So when I work with clients, and it really in your own work, or when you're working on your own things, getting to the root cause of what it was that has been getting in the way is huge. So I told you about me and how the connection with my dad, and how some of those behaviors showed up. Another example, and this is just for regular people, of me working with entrepreneurs a while back. I had, we'll call her Brenda. That's not her real name. When she first came to me, she wanted to scale her business. She came to me for a business reason. And I had already made the connection that business and relationships are very deeply connected. The work you do on yourself is essential for you to be able to move forward in your business. So she came with, I want to scale my business. I'm not sure what it is that's holding me back. I think it's fear of success. That's what she said. Or maybe it's confidence. So she was throwing out all kinds of different things. And in my questions to her and identifying this root, what I did was I took her through a series of questions. It's using your intuition and having a proven process of questions that help reveal what the deeper problem is. So I'd ask her things like, well, tell me more about that. So what makes you believe it's fear of success? And then she would talk. And then whatever her answer would be, well, tell me, how has that been a problem for you? How has it been showing up? And she would tell me more as we get deeper and deeper. What we ended up identifying was trust. Trust at the core was the root of why she wasn't scaling her business. So it went back to what was that initial thing that she really wanted to accomplish. And trust was the bigger issue. How that showed up or where it showed up was, again, it was things that happened when she was a child. And there was also a huge event that happened to her when she was a teen that affected her ability to trust. And so it was vital that we got to that root. And I want to give you an example of what she was experiencing in her day to day, because what was happening is she had one she wanted to scale was online, but she was seeing how this was playing out in her brick and mortar business as well. Because when she would walk in and talk to employees, what happened was she had this like innate need to take over. It was like she couldn't trust that they could do the job, even though she knew that they could. So there was that piece. And then there was also the way it was showing up with her online business was she wasn't trusting that anybody else could do it as well as her. So she wasn't taking the actions to scale, but there was an element of not trusting herself as well. So the trust went deep with two different things, with trusting others and trusting herself. And of course, trusting yourself is the key to the other. So that was her root. And that's how that played out. The next step is the subconscious resistance. Conscious resistance. Spelling and writing are here. Okay, excuse that, but you know what it says. Subconscious resistance. This is the step that was missing from the training that I had gone through. This was the step that I believe is the key to opening up and making the rest of these steps have the biggest impact, because our subconscious mind is there to protect us. And there's some things that it needs in order to feel safe. Well, it also needs to be able to make the connection of what happened in the past to the present behavior. And then the third thing is it needs to be able to see that there's another possibility of something different, and doing things in a different way that's a huge piece of this, because otherwise it's just going to hang on to this. That's why hung on to staying small for so long, because my subconscious mind didn't see it any other way. It only saw how to say that staying small kept me safe. And your subconscious mind is always going to do what it learns. It's going to do what is easiest. And it perceived that was the easiest route. Staying small is the easiest route for me. So having a way to overcome subconscious resistance is huge. And one of the things I teach in the process that I do is actually really pretty easy and simple. And I'm not going to give that away here, but I just want to let you know that it is super simple and easy. And it's something that you can even take away and do with yourself, because it uses the science of language for people to be able to shift that at the core and come to their own conclusion of those three things, so that they discover that it is safe to shift it, that they make the connection of what's been happening and how it's been showing up, and most importantly, that they see the possibilities of what it could be if they no longer had that pattern. So this is a huge piece of my process that I do like in a prep session before we do that 4 hour. So that's how that shows up. But I want you to know that you can apply this. There's other ways to feel safe and do those things. So you can apply this to your own methods as well. Okay. Next, we subconsciously shift the thing. And in this part, this is where I go back to those core emotions. So, in the thing that I shared earlier, where we shift those filters, this is where we work on core emotions that are stored in the gestalt with anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, sometimes hurt. Sometimes there's other, core emotions that show up there because those at their core are the thing that is connected to the beliefs that showed up. And many, many times when you're able to shift those, it works like dominoes, where when you get to the root cause, then as you shift those core emotions and you're able to get the learning, get the insights, get the wisdom that happens from what used to be traumatic, maybe a traumatic event, it helps shift those. I also want to say it's not always traumatic. So, a quick story, a client that I worked with was a weight loss coach, and she had lost 90 pounds and decided to be a coach because of her amazing story. She looked amazing. She was struggling with being consistent and struggling with bringing in clients, which is why she reached out to me. She was getting ready to retire from a teaching job and really wanted to get her business up and going into a full time business. What I discovered in working with her is some of the things that we needed to subconsciously shift weren't all negative. When she was a little girl, her mom and her aunt would take her out to celebrate anytime she had a great test score or anything like. They went out and got what she called fun food. Fun food was what I would consider, not the healthiest food, maybe ice cream or snow cones or something like that. But she had at that young age created a pattern or a belief that fun food and fun were connected for her. Healthy food didn't fit into that. So that was why, as an adult, she was sabotaging anything she did because she would binge eat. Then she would go through this guilt cycle, the shame cycle. She didn't feel good enough to work with clients. Like there was all this other muck that was going on because she had a positive experience of connecting food and fun together. And I'll tell you, it took 10 minutes to shift that at the subconscious mind. It took us a little while to figure out what that was. That was a little bit tricky, but we did figure it out. And literally the following week, she had a travel event that she was going to where in the past she would have eaten, on the road and then like beat herself up for 3 or 4 days. She went to this event and she told me that she went out to eat, ate what she wanted to eat. She did not binge, which was a pattern that she had before. And the very next day was able to get right back on board with where she was with eating healthy with no problems at all. So no more of that past drama of beating yourself up and self-sabotaging, any of that. That all shifted really, really quickly because we worked here at the core. And then the last step, new action. I call this a new action accelerator. And this is, let's see, this is the energy that you want to show up in. So this part, this is done in the 4 hour. And typically, if I'm working with someone one on one, this is also done in that 4 hour. And at the very end, because it literally takes like 10, 15 minutes tops. And it's based on a concept, neuroscience based, NLP based. If you're familiar with NLP, by the way, I have a lot of NLP training, but I don't teach it or do it in the way that's traditionally taught because traditional NLP focuses a lot on reading patterns and body language and a lot of stuff that as intuitive coaches, we don't even need because we are intuitive coaches. And I have learned and teach how to trust what I'm feeling from someone's energy so that I can pick up on where they are and things. So back to this piece of the new action accelerator. This we do at the very end and it grounds in the energy that they want to be in. It's based on a concept of modeling. And so modeling in NLP is, and I'm saying NLP as if you know what I'm talking about. So I don't want to assume neuro linguistic programming. It's based on modeling, and modeling, the concept of it means that if it's true for someone else, if someone else accomplished it, then it can be true for me. So, what I've done in this process is I have put together a very active, for lack of a better word, it's a visualization using hypnotic language and future pacing to ground in the energy and the action that the person needs to take in order to move forward. So, moving back to Brenda, who was struggling with trust, she did one session with me. And by the end, when we got to this part, she envisioned who it was or what it was that she wanted to, the energy that she wanted to show up in. It was like 10 minutes of it. And she immediately texted me that afternoon and was saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm now seeing that some of the people that I need to hire that can help me are already in my network." And within 3 weeks, she had hired 3 new people for her new online business. And she had started writing a training manual so that she could scale it. And then I checked in with her, it was under 90 days, but over 60, somewhere around probably the 75-day mark to see how her business was doing. And she had increased her sales, not her income, her sales by 68% in that under 90 days because she did these shifts. They became permanent. I talked to her like 6 months later. And side note, she came to me because of her business. You know how I said they're related. So it doesn't matter whether you're coming in for your business or you're coming in to fix relationships, it all connects. She messaged me about 6 months later that she had left the man she had been living with. And I didn't even know any of this going into it, but she said he no longer resonated with her. It turned out that, he had some drinking issues, some addiction issues that I didn't even know about. She got herself out of that situation because he was unwilling to change and she was unwilling to put up with it. She moved herself into a different frequency after having lunch with her yesterday. He's still stirring around into the swamp that he created. And she's not. She's moving forward and actually creating another business very soon. So it's so huge to be able to work on all these steps and shift them at their core. And it can be done in a very, very quick sort of way. One way that I like to explain this is imagine we are all born with a pair of glasses. When anything happens, like when my dad threw a big fit about something or got angry, or maybe I noticed a comment from someone, every single time that happens, you get us on your imaginary glasses. So as you're growing up in life and as an adult, these splotches are distorting your perception. You're not seeing the opportunities that are there. You're not seeing things from a place of neutral. You're seeing things through that old filter. And when you go through a process like this, it's like cleaning them up and then you put them on. And just like she had happened that same day, she texted me, it clears everything up and you can see clearly and you can make different decisions at their core. This is so huge. So imagine for a moment what becomes possible when the thing that's been running the show underneath is finally no longer in the way. What happens when you no longer default to overthinking or no longer default to self doubt, or you stop repeating patterns that have been there literally for a lifetime or even maybe lifetimes if are open to doing the generational or past life work. Imagine your subconscious mind and who you are all being fully aligned with the person that you wants to make the big impact and wants to really show up in a different way than what you've done before. So, if this resonated and you'd like to go deeper, I want to share, let me pull up the link here. I am hosting it's called the Paradigm Shift Experience. It is a 3-day event that is happening this week. So originally this presentation was going to happen last week. So it's not a lot of time, but the way I structured it, there's still time to join and it won't hopefully interrupt with your schedule. And what I'm doing is because you showed up today or because you signed up for this, if you're listening to the recording, you can join it for $333. And I can tell you, I have never offered it at that low of a price. Most of the time, it's been in the thousands for one-on-one work, most certainly, but even for my groups, it's been in the thousands. So 333, sign up for today until through tomorrow, because beyond that, you're not going to have enough time to really prep yourself. And it's a way of really honoring the energy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the chat. Like it there. And I want you to look at the times to see if it resonates, obviously. Look at the time, see if it works for you. The Thursday event is from 12 to 1:30 Central Standard Time. And then the big 4-hour shift is on Saturday and from 9 to 1. And then there is a integration circle on Sunday from 12 to 1:30 again. And this link has the regular pricing. So I'm also going to send the short link for the 333. There it is. Okay. And I will send both of those out separately in an email. And I'll just ask if there's any questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Sincerely, thank you for being on today. Thank you for listening if you're listening to the recording. And do reach out if you have any questions at all about the Paradigm Shift Experience that's happening on July 10th, 12th, and 13th. And that's it. I will again send out the email with both links and so that you can watch. And again, the special pricing is only through the end of Wednesday. And that's because there's some prep work to do. And I want to make sure that you have the time to do it so that you are properly prepared. All right. Talk to you soon. Have a wonderful day.